What has been your worst experience in a tabletop RPG?
The very first campaign I ever joined was a World of Darkness game, kind of a generalized World of Darkness game, based around a nightclub in Scotland that was neutral ground. And so the vampires and the werewolves and mages and whoever else we had at various times were able to meet there and hang out and do their dealings and talk about supernatural stuff in the back rooms. The front room, the kind of main dance area, was open to the public and had humans in it, and so nothing supernatural was allowed to happen there. And my character was human when he first introduced. Now, an important thing to know about this is that the public scenes all happened on IRC. Merck was the client that I used, but IRC was the agent that we used to actually play out all these main scenes that were going on, and then any solo scenes or extras or stuff like that went on a web forum, which was a fairly standard model at the time. Now, my character was Aiden, and he was introduced as a human who got hired by the club as a DJ. And while he was there, he started sleeping with this dancer, and he started making some friends, and he noticed something was off about the club, but he didn't want to get involved. And partly to explain this and partly for my own interest, I started writing this story on the forum with the GM approval. I followed this kid named Jason, who was in the United States. He was growing up. He got involved in the mob. He did some wild stuff while with them. And he had this whole arc that was covered over multiple posts that I was putting up with some regularity that ended up leading to him wanting to leave the mob. So he faked his death. He ran off from the United States, went to Europe. And people were really enjoying it. They were telling me that they found it interesting and that it was well written, and they were really enjoying following along with it. And all of this was fine and great until the big reveal. See, the big reveal was that Jason, when he ran off to Europe, he changed his name, and that all of this had in fact been the backstory for Aiden, my character, which was an assumed identity. And so the reason that he didn't want to get involved in the shady stuff that he was seeing at the club was that he knew that something secret was happening, and he assumed it was a mafia-related thing, and he didn't want them to notice him, and he didn't want to get involved, so he was trying very much to lay low, make some money, and figure out a plan of somewhere else to go. And people ate it up. They loved it. They thought it was great. They thought that interpretation was fun, all this other stuff. But suddenly, that dancer that Aiden was, involved with shows up in the middle of a scene and just goes ballistic in the club. She's just attacking people. She's trying to destroy the DJ booth. She's like breaking stuff behind the bar, all this stuff. The NPC bouncers are getting involved and having to fight her off and end up dragging her out. It was this big mess. And then she signs out of IRC. Like, no one knew what was going on. There was no warning. There was no explanation. She was just gone. And she wasn't talking to anyone. She wasn't answering messages from the GMs. And so they asked me, they said, hey, you actually talk to her. Like, you do scenes that aren't in the public forum, right? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, and you talk to her like one-on-one outside of that. And I was like, yeah, occasionally. And so they asked me if I knew what was going on, and I didn't. And so they asked if I could find out what was going on, or at least get her to talk to the GMs. So I sent her a message, and she starts yelling at me. See, it turns out she had this idea in her mind that because our characters were dating and my character wasn't being open about his backstory, that meant that we were dating in real life and that I was lying to her as a foundational part of this relationship. And this confused me significantly. As I've talked about on this channel before, I sometimes do end up in a relationship I didn't know I was in, but this really didn't seem like it made sense for that. And I told her that we weren't a thing. I reminded her that whatever Aiden was doing to her character had nothing to do with me and her. And we're real life people. Like, they're not real. Like, that they're not real. They're not actually us, right? So she freaks out. She goes to the GMs at this point, and she starts accusing me of being abusive because of all of this. And like, it was this huge big blow up. It was this huge big blow up when I was talking to her, and there was this huge big blow up when she was talking to the GMs, and they tried to address it, and they tried to kind of talk her down, but it devolved to the point where she ultimately got banned. The conversation ended with her getting banned. And this was all like in the span of one day. Like, I put up the post about, revealing that Jason was Aiden. She attacked the club. The conversation with me happened. The conversation with GMs happened. She got banned. This was all over the span of like maybe 20 hours. And so I ended up writing a scene on the forum because I was the only person that was really in a position to explain an in-game reason for why my character's girlfriend just suddenly up and vanished. But it was it was intense. It was a lot. It was pretty terrible. And obviously, it didn't scare me off from TTRPGs in general. I mean, like I said, this was my very first campaign, but this was also like 23 years ago, and so I've been playing ever since. But that character never did date anyone ever again, and except for one NPC that I created and ran. Like, I knew exactly what was going on with this NPC, and to this day, like, I play bards all the time, and I've never, as a bard, seduced anyone. It's just not a thing that is part of my play style. And in fact, I hadn't thought about it before, but it probably is related to that because the whole time I was writing, because when I'm doing stitches, since I can't edit it as easily, I actually write outlines for myself. And uh, while writing it, there were periods where I was like shaking, trying to remember some of the details, and it was the worst tabletop gaming experience I've ever had. Which means it's all been uphill from there, which is nice. And I don't know whatever happened to her, but I do hope that she got the help that she clearly needed.